A chilling wind howled through the streets as Ethan stepped outside, clutching his phone. The messages on the screen made no sense, words filled with panic, disjointed and desperate. "Ethan, don't go outside. Something's wrong. People are changing." His sister's text had arrived at dawn, but he had only seen it now. The morning felt eerie, too quiet. The usual hum of traffic was gone. The distant sound of barking dogs had vanished. Something was off. Ethan took a step forward and felt something sticky under his shoe. Blood. A thick trail led from a parked car to a half-open doorway. His stomach twisted. Then, a scream tore through the silence. He turned sharply. Down the street, a man sprinted toward him, wide-eyed, panting, terrified. Ethan barely had time to react before another figure tackled the man to the ground. Ethan's breath hitched. It wasn't a mugging. It wasn't a fight. The attacker, a woman in torn pajamas, sank her teeth into the man's shoulder, ripping away flesh. His shrieks turned into gurgling gasps. The woman, unfazed, chewed, blood dripping from her mouth. Ethan stumbled backward, horror clawing at his chest. Then she looked up. Her eyes, empty and lifeless, locked onto him. Her lips curled into something inhuman. And then she ran straight at him. ####. Ethan barely made it inside in time, slamming the door shut. His hands shook as he threw the lock in place. His heartbeat thundered in his ears. What the hell was that? His mind raced. He grabbed his phone again, but there was no signal. The last news alert was 3 hours old. Breaking, violent riots spreading across multiple cities. Authorities advise all citizens to stay indoors. Riots? That wasn't a riot. That was something else. A bang at the door sent him scrambling backward. The woman was there, clawing at the wood, snarling like an animal. Ethan grabbed a kitchen knife, his breath ragged. Then he heard another sound, faint, but growing louder. Sirens. He rushed to the window. A police car sped down the street, but it wasn't stopping. It was fleeing. Behind it, dozens of people staggered forward, their movements jerky and unnatural. Their skin was pale, torn in places, revealing muscle and bone. The undead. Ethan had seen enough movies to know what this was. But movies had rules that meant someone like him wouldn't survive long. He had to find his family. ####. His parents were out of town, but his sister, Olivia, was at her college dorm. It was a 10-minute drive away, if the roads weren't blocked. Ethan grabbed a backpack and stuffed it with essentials, bottled water, a flashlight, his dad's old baseball bat. His hands hesitated over the kitchen knife before shoving it in two. As he turned to leave, another scream echoed outside. This time, it was familiar. Mr. Willis, their elderly neighbor, was on his porch, gripping his arm. Blood soaked through his sweater. His wife stood in the doorway, shaking. She bit me, he gasped. Ethan's stomach sank. Mrs. Willis's face was twisted in an eerie snarl. Her hands twitched at her sides. No, she wouldn't. Mr. Willis took a step back. She lunged. Ethan had seen enough. He turned and ran through the back door, ignoring the screams behind him. He sprinted to his car and yanked the door open. As he fumbled with the keys, a glance in the rearview mirror made his blood run cold. More of them were coming. Shadows moved between houses. Some ran. Others staggered, as if still adjusting to the new horror of their existence. Ethan's hands trembled as he turned the key. The engine sputtered, then roared to life. With one last look at the street he had called home his entire life, he hit the gas. The world was no longer his. And he was about to find out just how much worse it would get. The tires screeched against the pavement as Ethan sped down the street, gripping the wheel so tightly his knuckles turned white. His pulse pounded in his ears, drowning out everything else. The undead swarmed behind him, some sprinting, others dragging broken limbs as they stumbled toward his car. He glanced at the fuel gauge, half a tank. Enough to get to Olivia's dorm, he told himself. He just had to focus. As he turned onto the main road, the true scale of the chaos unfolded before him. Cars were abandoned in the middle of the street, some with doors flung open as if their owners had fled in a panic. A gas station on the corner was engulfed in flames, thick black smoke curling into the sky. The radio crackled with static. Then, a broken transmission came through. Anyone listening, avoid downtown, military has lost control, repeat, avoid. The signal cut out. Ethan's throat went dry. Military? If even they had lost control, what chance did he have? A sudden movement to his right snapped him back to the road. A man darted out from behind a car, waving frantically. Stop! Please, stop, the man screamed, his face streaked with blood. Ethan's foot hovered over the brake. He should stop. But behind the man, shadows moved. A woman, no, something that had once been a woman, launched at him. The man barely had time to turn before she sank her teeth into his neck. Ethan floored the gas pedal, his stomach churning as he forced himself not to look back. There was nothing he could do. ####. Minutes later, he reached the road leading to Olivia's dorm. A row of crashed cars blocked the way. Some had blood splattered on the windshields. Others had shattered windows, as if something had been dragged out. He couldn't risk driving further. He had to go on foot. Shoving the car into park, he grabbed his backpack and bat. Every muscle in his body tensed as he stepped onto the pavement. The dorm building was just 3 blocks away. It felt like 3 miles. Shattered glass crunched beneath his boots as he weaved through the abandoned cars. A few feet away, a body lay half out of an open driver's side door, its face hidden. Ethan held his breath and stepped over it carefully. A whisper of movement made him freeze. From behind a wrecked SUV, a woman peered at him. Her face was gaunt, her eyes wild. She wasn't a zombie. She pressed a finger to her lips. Shoo. Ethan followed her gaze and saw them. 5, 6, no, more. The undead roamed near the entrance of a pharmacy across the street, their movements erratic, their heads twitching at every sound. One of them, a man in a business suit with a chunk of his face missing, stood alarmingly close. The woman motioned for Ethan to follow her. He hesitated, then nodded. Together, they ducked behind a row of overturned shopping carts and slipped through the back entrance of a convenience store. ####. Inside, it was dark. The air smelled of spilled milk and rot. Who are you? Ethan whispered. The woman wiped sweat from her brow. Mia. Her voice was hushed. You alone? He nodded. I need to get to my sister. Mia's eyes flickered with something, sympathy? Hope? You won't make it out there alone, she said. There's a group of us. We're hiding in the storage room. Ethan hesitated. Groups meant safety, but also risk. As if sensing his doubt, Mia added, you can leave if you want, but night's coming. You won't last out there when they get more aggressive. Ethan clenched his jaw. He didn't have a choice. Lead the way. She guided him through the aisles, stepping over scattered groceries and a broken display of candy bars. When they reached the back of the store, Mia knocked on a door in a distinct pattern. A moment later, it cracked open. A young man peered out. His eyes narrowed when he saw Ethan. Who the hell is this? He's alone, Mia said. He needs a place to stay. The young man gritted his teeth. We can't keep letting people in. A voice inside spoke up. Darren, we can't just leave him out there. Darren sighed and stepped aside. Fine. But if he turns, it's on you, Mia. Ethan entered the room cautiously. A dozen people sat huddled together on the floor, men, women, even a little boy clutching a teddy bear. The weight of it all hit Ethan at once. This wasn't just about survival. It was about trust. And in a world like this, trust could get you killed. Ethan leaned against the cold metal shelves, scanning the room. The air inside the storage room was thick with tension. Fear clung to everyone like a second skin. Mia introduced him to the group: Darren, the self-appointed leader, Lisa, a nurse, an older man named Greg, and a few others. The boy clutching the teddy bear was named Sam. He couldn't have been older than 7. Darren watched Ethan like a hawk. "We don't take risks here. If you're bitten, you tell us. No exceptions." Ethan's jaw tightened. "I'm not bitten." Darren didn't look convinced, but he didn't press further. Mia sat next to Ethan, whispering, "Don't mind him. He's been through a lot." Ethan wasn't sure if that excused Darren's paranoia. But in this world, maybe it did. ####. Hours passed in uneasy silence. Night had fallen, and with it came the eerie sound of the undead outside, moaning, shuffling feet, the occasional snarl. Ethan shifted uncomfortably. He needed to get to Olivia. Every moment wasted here felt like a death sentence for her. Then, a sudden wheezing breath broke the quiet. Ethan turned toward the sound. Greg, the older man, was clutching his chest, sweat dripping down his pale face. His breathing was shallow, labored. Lisa rushed to his side, checking his pulse. "It's his heart," she murmured. "He needs medicine." Mia's face fell. "The pharmacy across the street?" Lisa nodded. Darren crossed his arms. "Absolutely not. We're not risking anyone for a dying man." Lisa's head snapped toward him. "We have to. He won't last the night without his medication." Darren's expression hardened. "We go out there, we bring them back here." He gestured toward the door. "We barely have enough food as it is. I'm not letting us get wiped out for one person." Greg wheezed out a pained chuckle. "Ain't that a way to go?" he rasped. Ethan felt a sharp pang in his chest. If it were Olivia lying there, he'd risk everything for her. "I'll go," Ethan said. Mia's eyes widened. "What?" "I'll go to the pharmacy," he repeated. Darren scoffed. "Suit yourself." Mia stood. "Then I'm going with you." Darren glared at her. "We need you here." Mia squared her shoulders. "No, you need me to do what you say." For a long moment, no one moved. Then Darren turned away with a muttered curse. Lisa handed Ethan a flashlight. "Be careful." Ethan nodded. And then he and Mia slipped out into the darkness. ####. The streets were a graveyard. Bodies, some torn apart, some half-eaten, were scattered across the pavement. The air smelled of rot and blood. Ethan gripped his bat tightly as they crept forward. The pharmacy was just across the street. But between them and it, a dozen undead wandered aimlessly. Mia touched his arm. "We go around." They ducked behind a wrecked car, moving in a slow, careful arc. Every step felt like it could be their last. A low growl made Ethan freeze. To his left, a zombie stood near an overturned shopping cart. Its head twitched, nostrils flaring. Ethan barely breathed. Then Mia's foot brushed against a fallen can. It clattered against the pavement. The zombie's head snapped toward them. Then it charged. Mia yanked Ethan back just as the thing lunged, its hands swiping at the air where he had stood. Ethan swung his bat with all his strength. Crack! The zombie crumpled. But its growl had drawn the others. Mia grabbed Ethan's arm. "Run!" They sprinted toward the pharmacy, feet pounding against the asphalt. Behind them, the undead roared, giving chase. Mia reached the door first, shoving it open. Ethan slammed it shut just as the first zombie slammed into the glass. The creatures howled, clawing at the barrier. Mia panted. "We need to hurry." Ethan nodded, scanning the shelves. The place had already been ransacked, but... There! Mia grabbed a bottle of pills. "Heart meds. Let's go." They bolted for the back door. But as Ethan pushed it open, a figure stood in the alley, blocking their path. It was Darren. And he was pointing a gun at them. Hashtag hashtag hashtag. Drop the meds, Darren ordered. Ethan's stomach twisted. What the hell are you doing? Darren's eyes were cold. You think I was gonna let you play hero? We don't have enough supplies for an old man who's already dying. Mia stepped forward, fists clenched. He's one of us. Darren's grip on the gun tightened. Not anymore. Ethan's mind raced. The zombies outside were already pounding on the door. They didn't have time for this. Then, something flickered in Darren's eyes. Fear. Ethan realized Darren wasn't just doing this out of cruelty, he was scared. Scared that if they helped one person, it would open the door for more. That soon, there'd be nothing left for any of them. Ethan took a slow step forward. Darren, listen. We're all in this together. If we start turning on each other now. Darren's hands trembled. For a second, it looked like he might lower the gun. Then a loud crash shattered the moment. The front door burst open. The undead poured in. Ethan didn't hesitate. He grabbed Mia's wrist and yanked her through the back door. Darren cursed, stumbling back. The last thing Ethan saw before they sprinted into the alley was Darren's face, twisted in shock as the first zombie grabbed him. His screams followed them into the night. Hashtag hashtag hashtag. Back at the store, Lisa gasped when she saw the bottle of pills. You did it. Greg gave Ethan a weak smile. Didn't think you'd come back. Ethan exhaled. Yeah, well, we lost someone. Mia looked at the group, her voice quiet. Darren's dead. No one spoke. Finally, Lisa murmured, he made his choice. Ethan looked at the terrified faces around him. Trust had already started to fracture. And in a world like this, that was more dangerous than the undead. The storage room felt colder that night. Even though they had survived the pharmacy run, a bitter silence hung over the group. Darren's death had changed something. Before, trust had been thin. Now, it was almost non-existent. Greg clutched the bottle of pills, swallowing two with a grimace. Didn't think I'd wake up today, he muttered. Guess I owe you one. Ethan gave a tight nod. He didn't feel like a hero. Darren had tried to stop them, but he wasn't the real enemy. Fear was. And that fear was growing. Lisa sat near Sam, gently rubbing the boy's back as he dozed off. Mia sat beside Ethan, her knee bouncing anxiously. We can't stay here, she said. Ethan exhaled. I know. Greg coughed. Where would you go? My sister, Ethan said. She's in a dorm across town. If she's still alive, I have to find her. Mia nodded. Then I'm coming with you. Lisa frowned. What about the rest of us? Ethan hesitated. There was no good answer. Before he could speak, Greg said, we all need to go. This place ain't safe anymore. Not after what happened. No one argued. Hashtag hashtag hashtag. By dawn, they were ready. The group, Ethan, Mia, Lisa, Greg, Sam, and two others, Rachel and Omar, stepped out onto the street. The undead were still out there, but they were sluggish in the early morning light. They shambled aimlessly, heads twitching at sudden sounds. Ethan held his bat tightly. Stay quiet. Stay close. They moved between abandoned cars, stepping over bodies and broken glass. The city had once been alive, full of cars honking and people rushing to work. Now, it was nothing but echoes of the past. Sam whimpered as they passed a burned-out bus. Lisa hushed him quickly, but the sound had already drawn attention. A low growl came from the shadows of a nearby alley. Then another. Mia pulled Ethan's arm. We have to move. Now. Hashtag hashtag hashtag. They reached the main road and spotted an old pickup truck parked near a gas station. Omar grinned. If that thing runs, we might have a way out of here. Ethan and Omar sprinted toward the truck while the others crouched behind a dumpster. Omar yanked the driver's side door open. Keys are in it. Ethan checked the fuel gauge, less than a quarter tank. Omar twisted the key. The truck roared to life. The undead turned toward the noise. Get in! Ethan shouted. Mia and Lisa rushed forward, hoisting Sam into the back seat. Greg and Rachel scrambled in after them. A snarl came from behind as a rotting woman grabbed Omar's arm. Omar screamed. Ethan didn't hesitate. He swung the bat with all his strength. Crack! The zombie's head snapped to the side, but it didn't go down. More were coming. Omar, drive! Omar floored the gas pedal as Ethan yanked the door shut. The truck screeched forward, mowing down 2 zombies that had been in their path. Lisa clutched Sam tightly as he buried his face in her chest. Mia looked back, eyes wide. Where do we go now? She asked. Ethan exhaled, gripping the dashboard. To the dorms. To my sister. Hashtag hashtag hashtag. They made it 5 miles before they ran into trouble. A wreck blocked the road, a massive pileup of abandoned vehicles, some still smoldering from whatever chaos had unfolded here. Omar slammed the brakes. We're not getting through that. Ethan cursed under his breath. They had 2 options, turn back or go on foot. Mia pointed to a side street. That way. It'll take us longer, but we can go around. Greg rubbed his chest. Better than staying put. Ethan nodded. They got out, moving fast. The city was eerily quiet. Too quiet. Then, as they turned a corner, they saw them. Not zombies. People. A dozen figures stood in the street, armed with makeshift weapons. They had been looting a convenience store, but now they were staring directly at Ethan's group. One of them, a tall man with a scar across his face, stepped forward. Well, he said, voice like gravel. What do we have here? Mia tensed beside Ethan. Lisa gripped Sam's hand tightly. Ethan's stomach sank. Surviving the dead was hard. But surviving the living? That was the real test. Ethan's grip on his bat tightened as the group of survivors closed in. Unlike the undead, these people had intelligence and desperation. The man with the scar smirked. You all look lost. Ethan didn't respond. He could feel Mia shifting beside him, ready to run. Lisa held Sam close, her face pale. Another man stepped forward, shorter but stockier. He had a blood-stained machete resting against his shoulder. Where you headed? Ethan swallowed. Just passing through. Scarface chuckled. No one's just passing through anymore. Everything belongs to someone now. Ethan's heart pounded. This wasn't just a group of scavengers, they were claiming territory. Mia spoke up. We don't want trouble. The man with the machete grinned. Good. Then hand over your supplies, and we won't have any. Greg let out a dry laugh. Yeah? And what do we get in return? Scarface shrugged. You get to keep breathing. Ethan's mind raced. They were outnumbered. Outgunned. Fighting wasn't an option. But giving up everything meant they wouldn't survive the next day. Omar shifted nervously. Maybe we just... A scream cut through the tension. From the other end of the street, a woman bolted out of an alley, running straight toward them. Her clothes were torn, her hands slick with blood. Behind her, a horde followed. Dozens of undead, their hungry moans growing louder as they closed in. Scarface's group turned, momentarily distracted. Mia grabbed Ethan's wrist. Now! Hashtag hashtag hashtag. They ran. The chaos erupted behind them as Scarface's group scrambled to defend themselves. Gunshots rang out, but the undead were relentless. Ethan pushed forward, gripping Sam's small hand as they sprinted down an alley. Mia and Omar ran ahead, scanning for an escape route. Over there! Mia pointed to a fire escape. Rachel was the first to climb, scrambling up the metal ladder. Omar followed, then Lisa, hoisting Sam up before climbing herself. Greg wheezed as he struggled up the steps. Ethan looked back. The street was a war zone. Scarface's group was being overwhelmed, their screams drowned out by the snarls of the undead. Scarface himself was still fighting, swinging a metal pipe at the creatures closing in. Then he locked eyes with Ethan. A flicker of recognition. A plea. Ethan hesitated, just for a second. Then Scarface was gone, swallowed by the horde. Ethan turned and climbed. #####. They reached the rooftop, panting. Below, the undead feasted on what remained of Scarface's gang. Rachel wiped sweat from her face. Holy shit. Mia sat beside Ethan, catching her breath. That could have been us. Ethan exhaled. Yeah. Greg rubbed his chest. Where to now? Omar scanned the skyline. We keep moving. We have no choice. Lisa wrapped an arm around Sam. The boy was shaking. Ethan stared at the horizon. The dorms weren't far now. Olivia had to be alive. But after what they had just seen, he wasn't sure what kind of world they were walking into anymore. The rooftop offered a brief moment of safety, but Ethan knew they couldn't stay. The dorms were close, just a few blocks away. We move fast, Ethan said. Stay low, stay quiet. Greg groaned, rubbing his aching chest. I'm too damn old for this. Mia nudged him. Then let's get you somewhere safe. Omar scouted ahead, checking the fire escape. Clear. Let's go. One by one, they descended into the alley. #####. The streets were eerily silent. Lisa kept Sam close, whispering reassurances to the terrified boy. Rachel and Omar walked in tense silence, gripping their makeshift weapons. Ethan's pulse quickened when the dorms came into view. They looked intact, no fires, no collapsed walls. But the front doors were barricaded, a hastily made blockade of desks and chairs. Mia tapped Ethan's arm. Could mean survivors. Or it could mean trouble. Ethan stepped forward. Olivia, he called softly. Are you in there? Silence. Then, movement. A curtain shifted on the third floor. A shadow passed behind the glass. Mia saw it too. Someone's inside. Ethan's heart pounded. We have to get in. #####. The side entrance was less fortified. Omar tested the door, locked. Stand back, he said, pulling a crowbar from his bag. With a grunt, he wedged it between the door and the frame. The metal groaned. Then, click. The door swung open. Darkness greeted them. The air smelled stale, like dust and dried blood. Lisa shivered. I don't like this. Ethan stepped inside first, gripping his bat. The hallway was deserted. Then, a whisper. Ethan froze. Someone was breathing. From the shadows, a voice rasped, "Turn around." Now. A flashlight flicked on. A gun barrel pointed straight at Ethan's head. #####. A young man stood before them, dirty and exhausted, but very much alive. He didn't lower the gun. Who are you? He demanded. Ethan raised his hands slowly. I'm looking for my sister. Olivia Carter. The man's expression flickered. You know her? Ethan pressed. The gun lowered an inch. Maybe. Mia took a step forward. We don't want trouble. Just answers. The man hesitated, then nodded. Come with me. #####. He led them up 2 flights of stairs, stopping outside a dorm room. He knocked twice. A moment later, the door creaked open. And there she was. Olivia. Ethan's breath caught. She looked thinner, paler, but she was alive. Ethan, she whispered. He rushed forward, pulling her into a hug. I thought you were dead, she sobbed. Not a chance, he said. I came for you. But as he held her, he noticed the others in the room. 5 people, all scared. And in the corner, a girl lying on a mattress, sweating, trembling. Ethan's stomach dropped. Mia whispered, "She's infected." The young man, the one with the gun, looked away. "She's my sister," he murmured. Ethan realized the truth. This wasn't just a rescue. This was another impossible choice. The room was thick with tension. Ethan held Olivia tightly, his heart pounding. He had found her, alive, but the situation was worse than he could have imagined. In the dim light, the sick girl on the mattress let out a low, painful groan. Her skin was pale, her breath shallow. "How long has she been like this?" Mia asked. The young man with the gun, her brother, hesitated. "Since yesterday," he admitted. Ethan swallowed hard. That meant they were running out of time. Lisa shifted uncomfortably. Sam clutched her hand, eyes darting to the sick girl. Greg rubbed his face, sighing. "We all know what happens next," he muttered. But no one wanted to say it. ####. Olivia pulled Ethan aside, whispering urgently. "You have to help me get them out of here." Ethan frowned. "Olivia, she's infected. We can't risk it." "She's not gone yet," Olivia insisted. "And even if she does, I can't leave them behind." Ethan glanced at the others. They were barely holding on, just like his own group. More mouths to feed. More people to protect. More chances to die. Mia spoke up. "We don't have time to argue. She could turn any second." The girl's brother gripped his gun tighter. "Nobody's touching her," he growled. Omar shook his head. "You're not thinking straight. If she turns, we're all screwed." "She's my sister," the man snapped. Ethan knew what was coming. The same fear that had gotten Darren killed. "We need to decide," Greg said. The girl groaned again. Then, her breathing changed. ####. One deep gasp. Then silence. Lisa sucked in a breath. Sam whimpered, pressing against her side. The girl didn't move. Then, her fingers twitched. Her chest rose unnaturally, like something was waking up inside her. Her eyes shot open. Dead. ####. She lunged. Her brother screamed as she clawed at him, knocking the gun from his hands. The room exploded into chaos. Ethan swung his bat, crack, slamming it into the undead girl's side. She stumbled but didn't stop. Mia grabbed Sam, shielding him. Lisa backed against the wall, frozen in terror. Omar snatched the fallen gun and fired, bang, the shot echoing through the dorm. The girl's body collapsed, motionless. Silence. Then, a sound from the hallway. A deep, guttural moan. Then another. Then dozens. The gunshot had woken the dead. ####. The hallway filled with shuffling feet and growls. Olivia grabbed Ethan's arm. "We have to go." The girl's brother still knelt beside her body, shaking. Ethan clenched his jaw. There was no time. "Leave him." They bolted into the hall. Rachel screamed as a zombie lunged from a side room. Mia swung her crowbar, caving its skull in. Lisa clutched Sam, racing ahead. Greg wheezed, struggling to keep up. Omar fired another shot, bang, taking down a walker blocking their path. But more kept coming. They were trapped. ####. The only way out was the window. Ethan kicked it open, looking down, 2 stories. Not ideal, but better than getting eaten. "I'll go first." Omar climbed out, hanging from the ledge before dropping. He landed hard but rolled to his feet. "Come on." One by one, they jumped. Lisa hesitated, looking at Sam. "You have to be brave." Sam nodded. Ethan helped him out. Omar caught him safely. Lisa followed. Then Rachel. then Greg. Mia climbed out next, gripping the ledge. A hand grabbed her ankle. A zombie had reached her. She kicked wildly, but it wouldn't let go. "Ethan," she screamed. He didn't think. He swung his bat, thwack, smashing its fingers. Mia fell, landing hard but alive. Ethan took one last look inside. Olivia was waiting. She reached for him. Then, the girl's brother lunged from the shadows. His eyes wild. His face twisted in rage. "You left her," he screamed. Before Ethan could react, the man shoved him. Ethan lost his balance. And fell. ####. To be continued. Ethan hit the ground hard. Pain exploded through his body as the impact knocked the air from his lungs. His vision blurred, his ears rang. Mia was already there, grabbing his arm. "Ethan! Get up!" Above them, the dorm window was still open. Olivia stood frozen, eyes wide with horror. The man, her attacker, loomed behind her. "You should have saved her," he shouted. Olivia screamed as he lunged, but she ducked at the last second. His momentum carried him forward, straight through the open window. For a second, time slowed. Then, he fell. His body slammed into the pavement with a sickening crack. Silence. Then the groaning started. Not from him. From the horde that had followed the gunshot. They were coming. ####. Olivia was still trapped inside. Ethan forced himself up, despite the pain. His ankle throbbed, probably twisted, but there was no time to check. "We have to help her," he said. Mia shook her head. "Ethan, we can't." "She's my sister," he snapped. Without waiting, he hobbled toward the dorm entrance, gripping his bat. Greg cursed under his breath but followed. Omar, Rachel, and Lisa exchanged looks, then ran after them. ####. Inside, Olivia had barricaded herself in a hallway closet. Ethan banged on the door. "Olivia, it's me." The door cracked open. Olivia's tear-streaked face appeared. "Ethan." She stumbled out, throwing her arms around him. "We have to move," Mia urged. But the undead were already here. Shadows filled the hallway. The moans grew louder. "We're surrounded," Lisa whispered. Ethan clenched his jaw. "Not yet." ####. They ran. The stairwell was blocked, more zombies pouring in. The only escape was the back door. "Go!" Ethan shouted, swinging his bat. A zombie lunged, he knocked it back, but more pushed forward. Omar fired. Bang! Another one dropped. But there were too many. Mia grabbed Olivia's hand and ran. Greg and Lisa shielded Sam as they sprinted for the exit. The dead followed. Ethan swung again, his bat connected with a skull, sending a walker crashing into the others. "Come on!" Mia shouted. They burst through the door, stumbling into the alley. Zombies were everywhere. Omar pointed to a nearby alleyway. "There!" They ran. The undead roared behind them. They turned a corner. And froze. A wall of zombies blocked their path. Trapped. ####. Ethan's mind raced. They had seconds to react. "We fight?" Mia asked, breathing hard. "No," Ethan said. "We run." "But where?" Olivia asked. Ethan spotted a fire escape leading to a rooftop. "There." They sprinted toward it. Greg was first, pulling himself up. Lisa shoved Sam ahead of her. Omar covered the rear, gun shaking in his hands. Zombies clawed closer. Ethan grabbed Olivia, hoisting her up. Mia scrambled after her. Omar turned, just as a walker grabbed his arm. Omar screamed. Ethan swung, his bat shattered the creature's jaw, but two more took its place. Mia reached down. "Omar, Grab my hand. Omar tried. But another set of teeth tore into his shoulder. He gasped. His eyes met Ethan's. There was no time. Omar shoved Ethan backward. Go! The horde swallowed him whole. Mia screamed. But Ethan dragged her up the ladder. There was nothing they could do. Hashtag hashtag hashtag. On the rooftop, they collapsed, panting. Lisa sobbed, clutching Sam. Greg sat in stunned silence. Rachel wiped away silent tears. Mia trembled. We left him. Ethan closed his eyes. We had no choice. Olivia hugged him. We're still here. That's what matters. But Ethan wasn't sure anymore. They had escaped. But at what cost? The world had already taken so much. And it wasn't done yet. Hashtag hashtag hashtag. As the sun rose, they looked out over the ruined city. It wasn't over. Not yet. And the real test was still to come. The end.